Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Thabiso. I'm based in Cape Town, and yeah, in today's video I will be speaking to you guys about the process of me buying my first home at the age of 25. Well, before we continue with anything really, please make sure that you comment, like, subscribe, share, so that we can all grow. And yeah, basically, if this is of interest to you, please continue watching. And if it's not, then please watch my other videos. So yeah, guys, in 2020, just before, was it before? I'm not sure whether it was before. Yeah, but basically sometime early this year, I decided that I wanted to buy a house, right? And that process of buying a house, obviously, as you might imagine, is quite stressful. It is quite scary because you don't know what to expect. So it's essentially just an idea until you actually put in the work to, start the process of buying a house. So it was just an idea for me, and I was like, I want to buy my first home this year. And the main reason I wanted to do that is because I had planned to go overseas and do like a trip, but because COVID happened, I decided that I would be investing that money into property and, essentially stop renting and just like live in my own space. And so that was the whole thing that, motivated me to sort of get into the space of, looking for property and getting to buy a house, right? So I then, spoke to a couple of people. Obviously, this is the part where you try and understand what the process entails, because you cannot just say, I'm buying a house tomorrow, I've got the house. It's quite a lengthy process, and you do a lot of research before even deciding, that, okay, this is finally happening. So I started speaking to a lot of people. I spoke to my mentor, spoke to my mom about it, spoke to a couple of people that I knew who had properties. I was also actively looking online for houses that were on sale, and just to sort of understand what kind of property I would be interested in buying. So while doing that, I obviously had to go back to the drawing boards, look at my finances, and basically see how much I could afford in terms of a house, and also just like sort of see where I stand. Would I be able to maintain the house after I had gotten the house? And again, that process of going into research and talking to people that own property also does enlighten you in terms of that, because at least these people understand what it entails actually owning a house. So yeah, I then started looking, started seeing what kind of properties I wanted, what prices I was looking at, because again, pricing is very important. You can't just buy any house. You need to be smart about it and think about your finances. So I looked at houses that I would probably be able to afford. At that time, I really had no idea what I could afford, because I didn't think about things such as property rates and levies and all of those things. For me, it was just a house that I would probably live in and pay off a bond, right? So I spoke to a couple of people, started looking online in the market, and they told me about finding a bond originator, because a bond originator would then tell you how much you qualify for based on your financial income and all of those things, and then based off of that, they would then advise you what your price margin is, and they give you a certificate, an affordability certificate. I'm not sure if it's called that, but they give you some certificate that tells you this is how much you can afford. And I think mine was up to 1.8 million. So for me, like, I was like, oh cool, I'm stoked. This gives me a broader, it allows me to search for homes on a much more broader spectrum, because I could look up for houses up to at least 2 million rand and just negotiate it down to like 1.6 or something like that, right? So I then took that, and then I went and started looking for houses. So the process of looking for houses is very, very stressful. Stressful in the sense that you need to spend a lot of time understanding what you want with the house, right? And because for me, I'm a Sangoma, I was essentially looking for a place that would allow me to, number one, have my own bedroom. Number two, have an additional bedroom for visitors. So I've got family members, I've got nephews, so I want them to come and sleep over sometimes. I also wanted a house that would allow me to have a place of practice in Domba, where I could have my traditional medicine and all of those things. So for me, that was like those were the prerequisites, because obviously I don't want to have Domba in my bedroom, because a lot of times I can't be, limited. It doesn't, for me, that's a no-brainer. right? So that for me was the prerequisite. I also wanted a house that had a yard, because in future I want to have pets, right? So I wanted a house that would have like a cute garden, a yard, or something like that, an enclosed space whereby I would not have to share the actual property surrounding as well. So the yard, I don't want to share that with anyone. And if I was, for example, at an apartment, then that would not be the case. I would have to share the yard, etc. And yeah, I wanted a house obviously to be open plan, a house. So basically the idea is you need to have a house that you know will be suitable for me, and a house that should be comfortable in, because essentially you'd be staying in this house for up to 20 years, for example, and paying it off, and you need to be happy in that space, right? So you need to be very, very strict about the prerequisites that you want, so that you can sort of work towards something that you would be comfortable with, right? And then once I had decided that, I then, you know, started looking at, and also the suburb, where do you want to stay? So I looked at those things. So while I was searching for houses, I would make sure that I would search for places that would not have the property devaluates. You don't want the property to sort of lose its value over time because of the surrounding. You want the property to be located in a space whereby you could, in 10 years, if you decide to sell the house, that you could obviously, you know, upmarket, so that, you know, people can afford it and understand that, A, it's because of this area, right? So that's what I did. And then what else? I wanted it to be, so for me, I also wanted it to be quite close to my family. So my family lives in Gauteng. The house I bought is in Deep River. I didn't want a property that would require them to pay a lot of Uber fees when they needed to come over to my place, or people for my family, obviously, because they're main priority, to have difficult times getting to me, you know, because obviously they need to be get to me when they need to see me or something like that, right? So I wanted a property that was located closer to them. And what else? I wanted it to be at a place where there were like, guys, I'm a Sangoma, I need rest, you know. I wanted it to be in a very quiet neighborhood. So I didn't want it to be in the city center. I wanted the property to be located in around places where people are family people, right? So a respected area, a respected community, a good community where the crime is little and all of those things. So those are just like things that you sort of have to have behind the back of your head when you look for property. And that for me was the motivator as to, you know, to choosing where I am right now, okay? And then, yeah, so obviously when I went on Property 24, that's what I looked for. I looked on Property 24 and other sites, I can't really remember, but I know I got this house on Property 24. And then once I got the house that I wanted, I informed the bond originator, because they are essentially the ones who would be finding the bank for you, where you would be, rather they would be applying for a home loan on your behalf, right? Obviously there are other options, but I chose this way because firstly, it would make things a lot more easier for me, and I wouldn't have to go or become stressed about the process of finding the bank and negotiating bank rates and all of those things. So the bond originator did that for me. So after telling them that I had found the property that I wanted, I told the person that, listen, can I come? Well, I mean, obviously I did viewings as well. So looking online and doing viewings before deciding obviously makes more sense, right? And that's what I did. And then I informed the property agent that was selling the property that I was interested in the property, and they asked me to put in an offer, and I did. The property, I think the property was for 1.2. Yeah, my house was valued for 1.2 million, right? And I obviously negotiated it, because you have the option of negotiating. And property like agents, guys, they are literally gonna, like, they will be on your head like, no, you know, this is how many offers we got for this, so like your offer is very little and you won't stand a chance. But I put in an offer and I was like, listen, 1.1 million, not going more than that, you know, that's how much I have and that's how much I'm willing to spend on a house. And there was another person who had placed something a bit higher, but I think they didn't get a loan or something. So after theirs was kicked out, I got the property. And then, well, got the property in the sense that they accepted my offer. And then I went back to the bond originator. They applied for the bank loan for me, the home loan for me. And they then essentially what do they do? Oh yeah, then they obviously, you know, negotiate. They couple of banks give you an offer, you negotiate, you choose which one you want, to tell them, no, this is, I don't want this, this is, because obviously you need to think about the interest rates and all of those things, because obviously you don't want to pay too much money over a couple of years. You want your money to be reasonable so that you can still maintain your lifestyle, right? And then once that was done, I came and viewed again while the thing was on offer, just to see what I wanted to speak about, so no, not speak about, but basically what I wanted to fix, etc. And they also, the bank also comes and does a viewing of the property. They see what whether the property is worth the value that you've put in, and once everything is sorted, they then, you know, grant you the loan, and then they tell you that, hey, cool, you can start the process of buying the house. And then you get into that process of, hey, now you need to, you know, sign. Okay, so lawyers, oh god, there's things such as lawyers' fees that you need to pay, bond fees. Guys, so you basically, when you are going to buy a house, make sure that you at least have 200,000 sitting. All right, and this is not, I'm not even exaggerating, right? At least have, I mean, obviously I say 200,000 because obviously you also need to have the deposit, the property deposit, right? So at least have about 200,000 sitting, or 115, I don't know. Because you'll have to pay for lawyers, you'll have to pay for transfer costs, you'll have to pay for the bond fees, and then if you obviously want to, you know, pay a smaller, what is it called, Konj? If you want to pay a smaller bond, a deposit makes sense, because obviously you're not going to be, you already have invested a couple of thousands into the property, so it makes sense to pay the deposit so that your bond is lesser, right, or less. So that's what I did, and then once all of that was done, I then you know, waited, because COVID happened, so I waited about 3 months before I actually moved into the house, because, you know, the place kept on closing. I forgot what it's called, but the place kept on closing, so I had to wait a couple of months, and then I finally moved into my property. Another thing that I forgot to say in the beginning of this video was that when I was looking for a property, in my head, I calculated how much I would be willing to sacrifice on a monthly basis, and I told myself that it would be 10,000 rand on a monthly basis just for the bond. Remember, there's things like taxes and levies that is obviously in addition to that. So at the time I didn't really think of that, but realistically that's something that you also need to pay. So at the time, that's how much I was saying that I was gonna, you know, be willing to sacrifice, and so I did, right? And at the time I was currently renting, and my rent was about 5,000 rand in town. So I took the difference of that 10,000 rand. So I basically took 5,000 rand, which I would usually pay for rent and pay the rent, and then 5,000 rand extra I would deposit into my bank, because the reason I did that was because I wanted to have extra cash in my bank account just in case something happened, right? So for example, if I were to ever lose a job or anything like that, I would have money extra in my bank that would pay for the house if I am unable to pay for the house for a couple of, like, obviously for a short period, right? So that is just to cover your ass, and just to obviously be smart and you know, prevent, you know, you being kicked out of your property, because you don't want to be kicked out of your house, right? So that was a way for me to substitute possibility of ever losing a job and not being able to pay for my house for a couple of months while I was job hunting, right? So that's what I did. And I also bought quite a lot of quite a lot of furniture secondhand, because I don't want to spend a lot of money when I move into the property. And so that's what I did. So yeah, I mean, you know, if there's any questions that you guys have about me buying the house and how you guys have prepared for that, please do leave a comment in the comment section below. And also make sure that you do a lot of research if you decide to buy a house, guys, because it is a lot of work. And you know, I speak to a lot of people who have done it before, because it's very important that you have an understanding of what it entails, how much money you'd need to spend, how your finances are structured, so that you can obviously, you know, be stress-free when it comes to actually getting the house and owning it. And for me, it was part of my 2020 goals. So if you are planning to buy a house in 2021, put it in your goals, and also just start putting that extra cash on the side to have a deposit to pay for bond costs, to pay transfer costs, lawyers fees, and a deposit, because it makes sense, right? And also just to have some extra cash to cover the months that you might not have a job, right? Because again, you need to be smart about these things. You can get kicked out anytime, even though you own the house. So you need to be smart when it comes to that. So yeah, guys, please remember to comment, like, subscribe, share, and let's get it out there. Let's start owning properties, guys, before we become 30, and stop paying other people's bonds by renting property. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching my video, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in my next one. Cheers.